session public meetings are subject to being recorded. Your image and voice will be recorded. We are calling the meeting to order at 6:01. Let's see, we have a short agenda tonight, which is nice. Do we have minutes?
Yes, they're posted.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody have anything to say about the minutes?
I'm good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do you want to give an update on consortium? That was the spring forum that we went to?
Oh, yeah, that was very
pretty
good.
interesting.
Really?
I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
yay, and I'm sorry to have missed it.
Yeah, the speakers were great. There was an architect and, what was her title?
I don't remember. Did I send around the
Well, she was an
things? I think I
author.
sent everybody
The
at least the
beforehand.
one
Yeah.
slide. We didn't get the other.
Amy was, I can't remember her title, she's an author, she studies, planning and growth, and then she and this architect have partnered to try to come around to figure out zoning and aesthetics, to try to incorporate aesthetics into better planning and zoning so that it might be more agreeable to the voters. So if it looks better, if it makes sense, then it might be better accepted. My takeaway, and they had great examples. My takeaway was, and then the second presenter, presentation was sort of zoomed in, and she talked about school enrollment versus new growth. And it seems as if there's really no correlation to that,
Between
surprisingly.
Housing, building houses and, yeah.
And moreover, Berlin had, where most of the school enrollments have been declining over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
The
We were one of
demographic cliff, like we know about
We were
this.
very
Right.
few.
We're,
Oh, very few.
yeah, we're the least declining or even having not the COVID dip that most just what, for whatever reason, maybe it was skewed statistics, we didn't really dive deep into it, but it was just surprisingly funny.
And we, like the town of
The town
Berlin.
of Berlin.
Like,
Berlin
so you
would-
guys
yeah.
were called out in
Yeah,
this
we-
meeting.
Yeah, 'cause they had all
Okay.
the, all
Like, we
the-
don't know.
Everyone who was at the meeting and.
Yeah, and
Um,
Austin, like Littleton, I think, was on there too.
Uh-huh.
But it's not much. It's really like when you're talking, I think over 6% was over a period of time. Was that 5 years?
I think
And it
so.
was less than that if you amortize it over.
So I don't know
Okay.
if our age brackets were slightly different or, you know, for the students or whatnot, but anyway, that was kind of surprising. But what
But
seems to be the driving factor is number of bedrooms, not,
Not units.
not
There
units.
is no, like, statistically, it is just a big old blob of mess.
Yeah, it's all
Or-
over, it's
There's-
it's very random, other than very high, demographics, high earners, you know, people move to that town for the great schools, or the urban where it's just all about, you know, getting the best rent you can to get your kid into school. So, it's number of bedrooms, it's not units. So, the more bedrooms, the more school enrollment. However you figure that, it's not growth, it's not new houses. So what came to be the discussion was, you know, figuring this out and what to build. So, and the arguments that come up with all the apartments down wherever.
Everyone was so sure it was gonna totally blow the schools.
Well, they're, what, two
They're
bedrooms?
1 and 2 bedrooms, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's the factor, because
You don't have families with school-age kids in those units.
Mm-hmm. So, and a young
The other thing
family.
is, it's turnover, so when, people age out of their homes, if they're larger homes or homes with 3 bedrooms, then families are gonna probably move in.
So the shift, more than building new 3-bedroom houses, even if you build the 2-bedroom units, that might be where the seniors come around to, or the starter families with kids that are not yet in school, who then grow out of those places and shift into the bigger bedroom place. So it's more turnover in number of bedrooms than the new builds.
Interesting.
So, again, it's gonna be variety of housing
Going
that
back to
keeps
that
it alive.
ladder, all of the different pieces.
It's really, it's not even necessarily the affordable factor at all. And the other thing that, my other big takeaway was, zoning has much less of an impact on new build than building code. So our building codes are becoming very cost prohibitive,
Mhm.
less so than zoning where maybe you need a special permit to, do things or whatnot, depending on what it is you're talking about. So that was a big eye opener for me. But somehow I didn't think about that enough prior, but that seemed to be a very determining factor.
Yeah, they just talked about the evolution of how, how zoning has changed over time and how.
Well, they had
sort of the
studied it
intro
quite a
was-
bit and written
was that-
reports and research on it, so they, were very well versed, but those were pretty much the bottom lines. They talked a lot about the MBTA communities, and how they took 3 in this research study, very different communities, and tried to build to that community's needs, which I thought they did a phenomenal job with, instead of, keeping it in character, number
Mhm.
1, and step down zoning of, like, the most concentrated right near the T station, and then 2 blocks out, you step it down to, half as many units within that, and then you bring it down to duplexes before it hits, which seems pretty commonsensical, but it seems developers just wanna max it all out and build a big
Right.
box, and nobody's
Even-
happy.
And even that, they talked about just if you, like, rather than a big box, if you just put breaks in, like,
Right.
it aesthetically, it's much more pleasing, or put roofs that are not, like, flat, but tapered
Mhm.
a little bit.
Stepped in
and
and-
Stepped in, or all those little things sort of just make people overall happier. Set it back a little bit from.
And the
like-
half-story build, gaining the space so that it works for the developer, it's aesthetic, and it was really, really interesting. And the other thing about that was, building to the street line, which is sort of almost backwards to what you
And we
think.
we see it all the time, and I like it, like, you look at them and you're like, oh, why would anybody do that?
But setting it to the street, there's a streetscape, and actually that's a better design with parking in the back.
With parking in the back as opposed to
Then-
that dead parking
Yeah,
spots in the front.
so,
Wow.
and they proved it, they had all of their examples, and it was very, very interesting. I thought it was pretty well attended.
And it allowed them to, having MBT communities actually allowed them to do more extensive research because they got brought in
'Cause
to
people-
design, people who they normally wouldn't get pulled into design, because the state
Because of the
supplemented it because of the demands that had happened. So it was a very interesting research project for them, or opportunity for them to sort of do this with different spaces that they wouldn't normally have access to.
Mhm.
Huh.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a good one. It was a good one. And if anybody has anything that they'd like them to talk about, or like them to somebody to bring in, they ask for any sort of recommendations too, so if there are things we'd like to learn about, we should let them know, and they'll find somebody, or try to find somebody.
I mean, is it, what was I gonna say, everyone will be wanting to talk about, more about ADUs as we get more regs and people are, we get a little more experience with how this goes.
But the big thing was the turnover in, it's not necessarily what we're building new, it's how to shift everything else in between.
Which, I mean, you say it, and it's like, duh,
Y-
but
right?
you never.
No, it
Yeah.
it was clear when they
Yeah.
said it, but until then, what are we gonna build next, how's it gonna work? But it's almost like build what's gonna make it shift,
Right,
sort of thing.
the right size.
Right.
And balance what you have and what stock you have in the
Inventory.
It was pretty cool.
Wow. Did you send I'm not finding the slides?
I thought I
thought
saw them.
sent them.
Alright.
If I didn't, I will send them to you.
I didn't
Okay,
know
well,
they
we
were-
say, I mean, we should we should drop them in the minutes, drop them in the,
Yeah,
the meeting
I will
minutes if
get
they're-
them out. I thought I had sent them to the.
were there
curriculum
two
advisor.
presentations or just?
Just the one was on there, we didn't get the other one, just the one on the schools, I think is what they sent over, they
Okay.
didn't send the other one.
Okay, and it's totally possible that I flew through it and deleted it or put it somewhere I can't find it or something similar.
Yeah, I'll look after and send it again if I have.
I have the school enrollment presentation.
Yeah, that's the one I thought I had sent around, but maybe
Okay, you did
I know
send that? Yeah, we didn't get the other slides.
If I didn't, I meant to, and I will.
Okay.
There's- I know I sent it over to Tim and Carolyn on planning, so
Okay.
maybe that, I checked it off and
As
went,
being-
oh.
being sent to-
you
sent to
know,
everybody.
The rest of
Yeah.
the housing trust doesn't do that.
I mean, speaking of the ADUs within that context, I mean, that's a good way to infill
Right.
and start to shift things. So, I don't know where we fit into that, but
Cause multifamily was another, I mean, that was another thing we
Right.
talked about, was having multifamily options and having multifamily zoning is important.
and it wasn't just multifamily, it was open multifamily without age, familial status restrictions, like we do senior housing, that hasn't worked out all that well. It just leaves holes in things.
Right, I mean, you're breaking up family units, at least
Yep.
some of the time,
Yep.
right, and then you have to fill that, you
Mhm.
then have to, again, it's often breaking up units that already exist, and the ADUs maybe keep units together, but don't allow that open piece,
Mm-hmm.
the way
And then
We're currently talking about
walkability, you know.
we will always
so-
fail that.
We will. But when you have sort of multi-generational and multi-use type of building, then things start to,
And I think the intent, at least here at Riverbridge, I think, is to make a more walkable community there. I think,
yeah,
I think the
and I
things
think
that
it's.
they're looking at
they have-
growing will be,
Will be more walkable.
Mm-hmm. And that has also the benefit of being on the outskirts and near the highway, so it's developing that way. So I really was glad I went this time.
And we got a tour,
Right.
they have in the basement, if anybody's looking for like office stuff, they have this place called, was it Requipment, is that the name of it?
Don't remember the name of it.
So they take old office furniture, like good office furniture, and all kinds of different things. Like in the basement, there's like all kinds of like school craft materials. Anybody, if you know any homeschoolers or rec maybe, they have all of this stuff that is sort of, they get secondhand and then they resell. And it's
But
in the
it's pretty much
basement of
in
Devon's,
new
and
condition,
it's
it's not.
really good stuff.
So
It's not like,
and it's very organized.
Like who's
it's part of the Devon's
Devon's
complex.
It's at the complex, I'm not sure exactly who runs it.
Yeah, I have that flyer at home too.
Yeah, I'm not sure I brought
That's
that
cool.
in today.
But that's, I mean, if you're looking for that sort of stuff, that would be a
Mhm.
great place to look.
And it's like, what, 60%
Yeah.
cost of new, so, and I don't know if there's any bargaining or negotiation that happens, but.
And then they have all their stuff is up on the website too, so you can look on the website to see it.
Yeah, very, very organized.
Oh, wow, cool.
So that was a, a little add-on. We got a tour. You were there a while.
Alright, CPA update.
We haven't met since we met last, for
Okay.
once. Normally they're waiting on us. I did send you all sort of a draft memo, which you then ran through ChatGPT, which I haven't even had a chance to look at yet. It would be I expect this to be a little bit of back and forth with them about the content of it, and then we can actually, then sort of, actually draft something. But my questions for you all is, like, what are we missing here, or what are the pieces that we wanna make sure are very clear? So 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, when all of us aren't doing this and the CPA is turned over, there's a framework for these two groups to work together.
Yeah, I think for us, it's that piece of going into our account rather than going into articles, because that is gonna get really annoying over time. We want things to go directly into the one account with the one account number, and we do the accounting, but
Yeah,
I have from June all of the different accounts that we currently have, and it's already madness.
Yeah.
I did find out though that the consortium, there was an article for that, so we haven't actually been paying that out of that lump sum. There was an article at town meeting for that. It ends shortly, but we can probably do something to. My thought would be that will go over to what we're using Jasipa for, because I believe what they do is administrative mainly. So it's exactly what Jasipa was doing.
Wait a minute, which?
So right now, Assabet Regional Consortium, there is an article for that I wasn't aware of. I thought that was being paid out of the fees that just got transferred over, that big lump sum of money that from in lieu of payments and that sort of thing. So that large sum.
The 200.
Yeah, no. We have another pool of money that got moved over
Okay.
at fall town meeting. A significant chunk of money.
50,000 maybe? More?
Yeah.
Or am I not?
Wait a
minute.
I feel like this is totally news to me, and it
No,
shouldn't
it
be.
shouldn't be.
Right.
It shouldn't be.
No.
Okay. It was there were, planning had sort of control of in lieu of payments that had been given by developers who didn't wanna build affordable units or those kinds of things.
Got it, okay,
All right.
okay, got it, okay, the planning, okay, yes,
Okay.
I haven't
So
filed
I-
under planning in my head, that's why I couldn't
thought-
find it.
I thought that Assabet Regional Consortium was coming out of that pot of money, but there was actually an article at town meeting, and that is still going right now.
It's still active, yeah.
So we'll wanna look at it, but I think since we're not technically doing the housing coordinator anymore, I think that they serve the same role.
Mhm.
That was part of our problem all along, was those two organizations basically serve the same role. So I think CPA funds, our administrative CPA funds can cover that
Good.
going forward after we run out of that article, which is still paying for things for at least the next quarter. So probably fall town meeting will have to figure something out with how that's structured,
The town meeting that is coming,
the fall one, yeah.
got it, okay.
Cause it goes through one more quarter, I think, is all that's left on that, but I will verify that with June again,
Okay.
cause it was time. It was for X amount of time, but yeah, so we weren't,
So we could
weren't paying
just
it out of the.
kind of switch the people in the article.
Yeah, I think
Right?
we can probably ask town meeting permission to adjust that article so we can run the one we have out.
To eliminate duplicate,
Yeah,
streamline it.
but eventually we really, like I said, we wanna direct all money to the housing trust account.
I think so.
Right, rather, yeah, I
Rather
think
than-
we
Rather than
were
being
being very
town meeting
specific in the articles.
And that was a little bit
Which-
in what you wrote.
Well, exactly, that
Yeah.
idea.
That we need to clarify, because that wasn't my understanding, is that with the trust being its own entity,
Yeah.
they put it in the
That-
bucket,
at
and they're
the
really
time-
not necessarily approving the things that we do. We operate very.
They recommend, so the
So, yeah.
problem, The
It's a
Community
coordinated
Preservation
effort.
Act committee, right, they are responsible for the distribution, for making recommendations to town meeting about distribution of the CPA funds. Town meeting is the only body that can actually appropriate those
Yeah.
funds. So we have to ask the Community Preservation Act committee and have them basically present it, approve of it, and have town meeting vote on it and approve it for us to get those funds. Even though it's built in that 10% of that money is allocated for housing and we are the designated group to do housing.
Yeah.
So-
But what we can also, like,
See,
I do
don't
see,
think that's quite streamlined enough.
Well, but it's not.
well, except you can do that like we did the.
Because we've done it very generally anyway.
It's-
Preservation, creation, you know, that is
Yeah.
our role. And as long as we're doing those things, we don't necessarily need approval of every single,
We don't need
we
to
have that autonomy.
approve at town meeting for that, but we would always have, we would have it, because we want to have a good working relationship and continue to get funds, we would always want to have a relationship with CPA where we discuss sort of what we're doing. Also, the more buy-in you have from the more broad buy-in you have, like, if we were going to buy a property, even though we have that money, we could literally sort of go do that, cause it was allocated for that sort of broad
100% can.
purpose. We 100%
We can procure.
I would still have Beth talk to CPA about it. I would probably talk to the select board about it, and just get a sort of a broad coalition of folks who are behind that sort of effort. I would never want us to be doing that, personally, never want us to be doing that sort of in a bubble here.
Even though, I mean, legally we could.
Legally, we
Like,
could.
you know, under the statute, we can own
Right.
property, we can, you know,
Yeah, do all the
we can take
things,
out a
yeah.
bank loan, we can
Yeah.
do all kinds of crazy things.
Yeah.
Right.
And obviously, the idea, we don't wanna, we're constituted because we can be more nimble. So we can just go ahead and do without going back to town meeting.
Right.
So yes, in that case, but I would still get buy-in within town offices and within, should something come up that we need to buy quickly or step in on.
Typically, in many communities, there's sort of a standing article that takes that 10%
And puts it,
as, you know, in exactly the same way
And
there's
I
the
would-
fire truck contribution
I would
every
like
year
us
or
to
whatever.
get
And
there.
we can totally do that, by using the CPA, you know, filling out their forms and going through their process, and having them, you know, bring it up at town meeting, but have that just be, there's no issue with us saying, we want to use this towards, you know, buying property, like we need to have, you know, we need to have a chunk of cash to do this. And so that's very standard for the trust. I mean, that's the point of being a trust,
Mhm.
right, is that we get to keep the money. We don't have to turn it back at the end of the fiscal year or anything.
Well, the really point of the trust is being nimble, and with that comes not turning it back and the autonomy. But the nimbleness is hard to get when you are requiring approvals everywhere and town special meetings or whatnot.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure.
So no town meetings, but like I said, it's still pretty nimble if you're just going to CPA and saying, we have this project online, we're
Absolutely.
gonna move, and going to the select
For
board and saying,
everybody
"We
to
have
know
this."
where everybody's at.
Yeah, but no, we absolutely don't have to go back to town meeting.
But once the meeting
Once
has been
it's
allocated,
allocated.
it has been allocated, but there's no way, we can't get CPA funds without going through the CPA committee. We do have other funds, right, that come from
Okay.
other places that
Those are just.
those are just ours. But sort of figuring out that ongoing process. And the piece I actually sent an email about, because I wanted to confirm, I believe the committee, the way the CPA committee works is their sort of funding cycle is focused on the annual town meeting.
Mhm.
Right, and so like November 1st is the deadline, right, and then they work with the people who've put in applications to try and help them flesh them out. And so leading up to, you know, February or March, you know, when the warrant has to be set. I want to make sure, I'm confirming, I believe it to be true, that if we have a need, if we're like, this thing is coming up, if we could get 50,000, that would be great. It's for them to, bring a warrant article at a special town meeting. That's the piece, that's what that second bullet point in there is.
If we need
is,
extra beyond what we already have.
you know, is to poke them, and I mean, right, there's that big pot of money, right? 10% is allocated to each of the, you know, the housing, the open space, the rec, and historic, right? But there's this other thing that any of us can compete for.
Okay.
And what I want to set out is the other projects don't have a mechanism to get money outside of that annual cycle and come up in May. I want it to be clear.
Which I can say that it came up without even, I did a very broad thing in ChatGPT, and that was part of what it brought back. So that is also very standard practice to have the housing trust be able to go to
Directly.
to CPA in special town meeting. So that is a standard practice.
Yeah, so that's
If
what
it
I
showed up in a
want it.
Okay, so you're talking about beyond our bucket.
beyond our budget.
Correct.
Yeah.
That other-
That part I didn't know.
Yeah, because because
Okay.
so they're
Cause I'm like, our bucket's our bucket.
Our bucket's our bucket.
Our bucket, I mean, there's.
And we know what we're doing with it, so why do we have to
Yes,
ask permission
but
all
we
the
still
time?
have, but we do still
Okay.
have to ask for it, but we can regularize that, so it just becomes,
Yeah, that
a thing.
should just be
you know,
automated.
it's
almost.
a pretty standard form.
And then as long as, you know, obviously we'll inform people, but, you know, if, I don't know, we have to find a way to spend our money as it is, but.
We're gonna get there. I think
once we-
this is all gonna happen like all at once.
And
We're
then
gonna-
we will suddenly have no money, right, I mean,
I know. No, that's how everything is, right?
This is true, yeah.
But, okay.
Yeah,
I
so
gotcha.
does that make sense?
Yeah,
That's
I
what
like
I'm trying to do.
that.
next
I like
time?
that.
Okay.
You know, for
A
me,
lot.
one of the
And
biggest
it's
things
very
is
well
having
written
it
by
all
all.
go into one bucket.
Well, and that's, and,
then
and,
5 buckets.
Yeah.
Which is where
and so
we are now.
we're writing our own warrant articles and bringing
Yeah.
them to the CPA.
So, yeah.
as a board
Once
And
it's
last
in
time
one
we
bucket.
didn't have an account last
Right.
time, so we had to do warrant articles, but
Yeah.
we have an account now.
And so it can be transferred to that account, yeah.
So, can we commingle those funds? Or is it just accounting?
It's just an accounting
Okay.
thing, so they can all be
Alright.
in one place and you just
making sure.
keep track of what, yeah.
Right, because they could all be.
Because anything we spend out of CPA has to be for specific purposes and it has to
Yeah.
be reported and all of
That's
those
why
things.
if we put the things from other places along with that, I just wanna make sure that we still have the flexibility to do other things, because there are other things I think we need to do. You know, some of the local things that CPA excludes, which maybe someday we'll get to.
Grand plans happening over there.
These take time, but we will get there. I believe we will get there. Okay, so yeah, look at,
Right.
I'm gonna ask you, look at what ChatGPT did,
Mhm.
and then fiddle with yours again, or fiddle with one of those, or fiddle with yours and incorporate what makes sense to you, and then send us all over a new one.
Okay, I can totally do that. And if there are things, you know, I mean, there are a lot of process things we can't totally skip, but pointing out the places where we are different than the recreation committee and their gazebo, and how the process for that would work compared to the way we operate, just to have it written down, because people,
We are so much more narrow too, in my mind, we're so
Oh,
narrow
yeah, yeah.
in our scope of
Yeah.
responsibility.
yes, but you know.
No, I think that's actually very important, that we are so very different than most of the other parts,
Yep.
operating mechanisms.
Yeah, for the moment, there are, some towns do, trust for conservation as well, which would align the open space folks much more.
Mhm.
Some open space projects, right? Anything sponsored by conservation could end up with the same type of
Right.
financial structures, but currently we're not there, so it is just us being super special. So my action item is to take what ChatGPT did, and I will massage it. Our
And I
next,
did 2 things for you, I ran yours through,
Uh-huh.
and I did one completely from scratch and said, ChatGPT, give me an MOU for this purpose.
That is bold.
But look, when
I haven't-
it came
I
out,
don't
you're
know.
gonna be like, yeah,
As long as it didn't
it's
hallucinate things for
freaking
us.
magic.
I was gonna
With
think,
municipal
your
stuff, it's magic,
thing
because
is gonna have 6 fingers.
Right, exactly. Our house will have 6 fingers.
ChatGPT is really good for municipal things because it has
There's
a
so
ton
much
of
stuff
stuff
is there.
to draw from. So
Cool.
everything I have done from a municipal standpoint, like the policies or any of that sort of stuff, comes back with very reasonable answers. Just because there is just a wealth of information, and it can pull, also it pulls directly, like one of the things it did for you was it pulled in the Mass General Law that is pertinent, so that it is stated in the, cause it's got access to all that stuff.
Our next meeting is the 2nd of July, or whatever, the meeting of the CPA.
Okay.
And so, I would like to have something, not necessarily final, but just something for them to start from and see what kind of feedback I get from them for that meeting.
Okay, we're not,
We don't meet again
yeah,
before then.
yeah.
So, I mean, can we
So,
do it as a consultative?
individually, send her any comment after she sends you the thing, after she incorporates whatever makes sense from ChatGPT or, hers or whatever, after she sends a copy over, another one, send your feedback directly to Beth, and she can then start the conversation, knowing that we will come back to the table here at the next meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
With any feedback also, and she'll have feedback potentially. from-
Potentially fun to see what
Yeah.
they have to say. Awesome. Where they is Tim.
Yes.
Yes.
Wayne doesn't care.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay.
Who else is it?
Ellie,
I don't know.
Bergen?
Yes,
from
Historic.
Ellie from Historic.
Historic.
There is no rec representative
Yeah.
right now. They wouldn't work.
They're working on it.
Rec hasn't been able to come up with anybody.
And then
Wayne
Carolyn.
is at large, and Carolyn is open space / conservation. And
Is it MJ?
MJ is the other at large rep.
Okay.
Okay, so we all had a chance to look at the contract for CMRPC for the down payment, doing the scope of the down payment program. I know you wanted to have a discussion about the usage costs.
I just thought that if they're going to charge us to develop, if we're paying for them to develop their initial deal, it wants to be able to, for them to be able to use that with other towns. I mean, if we're okay with other towns using it, I don't think they can charge
I
other
can tell you
towns
that this
for it.
contract will be, it's public now, if we do anything with it. So they could do that regardless, because
But whether or not they told us they were going to do that, they could use this with somebody else.
because it's all, municipal is all public.
That's
but
all. That was
there's
just my
also, yeah.
thought.
Yeah.
I don't think other towns should pay them to come up with a
To
contract.
come with, yeah, well, if they're gonna
If
use the
it's already
existing one.
made.
My hope is that this just shortens the process and we get more down
Yes.
payment programs in other
Yep.
communities, because we have done
But if it's
the
public,
work.
they'll just take it like we borrowed from
Yeah.
other.
Well, exactly.
But I will,
Like
I
we-
will
like we
literally,
tried.
good.
when we
So-
get this, I will
no, that-
literally
that
post
answers
it on the
my
website.
whole concern, actually.
Everybody can find it.
Yeah.
That is my plan.
Just make sure it's free.
Sorry, it's there, here you go.
So my read of this document
Yes.
is that we have 15 pages of
Yeah.
legal,
Legal.
and
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
appendix
Two
B,
of-
these
yeah.
3 lines, 5 lines, is literally the only content. Okay.
Do you wanna look? Yeah.
All right, I was making
And
sure
it's
making
mostly
sure I hadn't
all
missed
the
anything as I ran through
It's
this.
a CMRPC
Okay.
standard contract.
And so we've asked them for the sample eligibility criteria, which potentially can be stolen directly from the Bread and Roses.
all over, yeah.
In fact, many
I
of
think
these things
MWCD already stole that. so-
has already stolen that. And so, this says collect required documentation from applicants as part of the scope of services here. Does
No.
that mean that
They're
that $5,000 makes that happen? Like, for perpetuity, is that what they are signing up for here?
No, because this is, MWCD is gonna do that, the actual collection of, so, draft suggested loan or grant structure, amounts, terms, draft administrative model, collect required documentation from applicants. That is, I'm not sure what they're doing there, I will ask.
Cause that's a deal for $5,000.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but that's not, they aren't going to manage our program. And that's what that is. I'm assuming it's the.
I mean, this is the remainder of
So,
Jasiva's, thing.
We haven't actually spent, right now, we have spent nothing out of that because it looks to me, based on this, that June took it out of another pool of money. Accidentally, so I thought it was
Accounting.
Wednesday, it's not Wednesday, but I will go and talk to her about that. But
Okay.
right now, we have $20,000 in that account, so that's, the thing for me, the key thing for me with this, what is the work here is drafting or reviewing a partnership agreement that MWCD.
could use.
So that, but drafting that agreement, that is where we were stuck, is
So,
drafting
but
that agreement.
that contract, their CMRPC they're the ones who, no, they are not the ones.
They are not the ones.
Got it, okay.
That
I was
wasn't,
like,
we took the Bread and Roses contract, then MWCD got a hold of it,
and was
and
unable
then our
to.
lawyer got a hold of it. And when our lawyer got a hold of it, we kinda went, this isn't gonna work. So, what we need is a
So
a legal
actually their
agreement.
work,
That is
the real work here is
There.
actually that last one.
yes.
What are how do we agree that they have completed their work appropriately?
Well, this is kinda what CMRPC does, but that's over in this part, right? That should be over in
Or like, there's the period of performance, that they'll have it to us by December, sure.
we don't pay them until we agree that it's completed.
Right.
How about that?
Which
We
is,
simply don't pay them.
which is great, but how do,
Until they start
I mean, for
working on it.
instance, if they generated something like the contract from before where the lawyers took one look at it and threw their hands up in the air. Right, and we just send it back and say, no?
No,
And
and
we just
this-
keep,
we
okay.
keep doing that.
Okay,
We manage
as
the
long as-
contract.
It might be under termination of agreement,
Yeah.
number
Yeah.
7.
Yeah.
If, we keep in contact with them, they have 14 days to cure stuff, or we can just say, this isn't working,
Okay.
I guess. But I agree, that's kind of cause what if we're never satisfied? You know what I mean, like.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you too, that for me, the part of that is going to be, they hand me this agreement. I take it to Kristen and say, can you have legal review this?
And when legal had put the check mark on
And
it,
say,
then,
yeah,
Yeah.
no, or, yeah, this
Okay.
is fine.
alright, no, that seems like a perfectly reasonable standard. And that wasn't in here, and I don't know that it needs to be,
Yeah.
as long as we know what we're doing, I think.
Yeah.
invoice all final costs within 9 days following completion of this agreement. Okay.
So yeah, if we get bad work or incomplete work, then we just, yeah,
Okay.
no. And it has to pass the lawyer test.
And did you get I don't know how much you've actually talked to anybody there about this.
I sent an email to Connor.
Okay,
About the extent of.
I didn't know if,
And then he sent one back and said, so you're talking to this, I'm like, yeah, well, I think I forwarded you all
Yes,
that
the
email.
email
So that
from
was,
Connor.
you've all seen that complete
Okay.
conversation.
it'd be nice to get something before December. I don't know if that's
Well-
like their standard time frame. I mean, obviously they
I
do
s-
other things.
I said I gave them time because I didn't know how long it was going to take us, I didn't know, so,
Yeah, totally fine.
I know that staffing can be an issue, and
Yeah.
they're gonna have to use existing staff, so, we've waited this long, hopefully it'll be earlier than that, but, cause I don't think, like you said, I think there is a lot of stuff out there for most of this.
Right.
Um,
And a professional in the field will have a much better time putting something together that's reasonable.
Yeah.
This kinda just says draft, it doesn't say draft sufficient, it just says draft. These are all drafts, not, draft and agreed upon. So if they give us one draft, is that what we get?
I think there is a point where we have to go, we do a lot of work with CMRPC, and their goal, they're not trying to screw us over, okay? They are not trying to screw us over.
But when things aren't specific enough and people change places and things, that's what contracts are for.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I might say a draft, an agreeable contract, come up with, you know what I mean? I'm not finding the word right now, but not just giving us a draft, okay, we did it.
An executable
An executable or.
partnership agreement?
An agreement, approved by our legal department or something? Just that little stipulation in there rather than just gives a draft. And then there's that understanding.
Alright, I will go back to Connor and let him know.
Cause that will show the complete work, I guess, if it's accepted by our own legal.
And then will you need everybody's signatures?
Just mine,
Or
but
can- you
if
can do
this
it?
contract is changing, then I will have to come back to you in July. I will never, we will vote on a contract and whether it is going to be signed or not. So, we will come back to it, I will talk to Connor and ask if we can get any more specificity in there, and,
I think even just a sentence about like what done actually is, and that idea of, that the lawyers agree that it's a functional contract that meets our needs.
Yeah, cause it says in the last one that MWCD could use with Berlin or other interested towns. It should be something that actually complies with their needs rather than like, they're like, you could use it if your legal team agreed to it, you could. So,
Exactly.
but I agree with they probably are not looking to screw us over in any way.
cause yeah, it's their business model, we've done, the town has done multiple of these types of contracts, so I'm not super concerned, but I will absolutely go back and take the feedback back and see what we can do. Okay, Legion Hall, I know you had an update for the Legion Hall stuff.
Yeah, a little bit. I met with Bill Brookings, to try to determine, how to park it, like what we need to do.
Ooh, maps!
And this is in a butters, drawing, but it shows the Legion Hall, it shows the existing cesspool, and it shows the well in relation to a butters, which is where you need to start to be able to figure out if and where to park. So, there could be wetland concerns we'll need to address. But pretty much, this is the system we would have to be concerned with. We would probably be parking where the cesspool is. That would probably be where we need to park. So hopefully there's some kind of good soil there and we can move, that can work. Within that space, it is close. There would probably be local variances needed by the Board of Health because it's about 80 feet from that system. So it's 100 foot, probably need some kind of variance like that, which, Bill said that they will consider that, usually. What I didn't expect was the fact that because there's an existing cesspool there, that we are supposed to, it does bring us to the current. If there were nothing there, and it's residential land, we can perk for residential, but because its last use is a Legion Hall, we need to perk for that flow, because there's an existing, because it was already in use.
And it doesn't matter that it's been out of use for the amount of time that it takes for it to revert back. Because I'm still questioning that, because the building commissioner told me that it had reverted back to its initial use. And I'm a little confused by the fact that you would be perking it for a use that does not apply at this juncture.
That was my argument. And that would be true if there weren't an existing
I'm
sewage structure.
wondering if
So-
that existing structure was actually, do we know even that existing structure was adequate for the usage that it was being used for? Because
I'm sure it was.
Okay, so
Yeah.
maybe it was,
Yeah.
alright.
I mean, cesspools worked pretty well, actually,
No, I could see it like totally being for like a very small, like, get by, rather than being for what you would anticipate for.
Yeah. I mean, a Legion Hall, even though maybe it has 40 people there, it doesn't have showers, it doesn't have, it did have cooking, but, so, an engineer might be able to shed some more light on that, but that's Bill's take on it.
Okay.
He is our
Either, yeah.
guy, and that's what he advised me, is that it goes by past use because there is an existing structure. If there were nothing there at all, which then it wouldn't have ever had,
Is the structure in good order?
it's insufficient. It's
So, alright, I'm
functionally
gonna
obsolete.
ask right. What's a cesspool? Is it just a hole?
It's a hole with stones around it so it doesn't cave in.
So,
like-
okay, so there's
so
there's
it's a
not even
homemade
like concrete or
septic tank.
anything.
Yeah.
It's a
Okay.
homemade septic tank.
Alright.
They used to
that's-
dig a
That's
hole,
what I had in my head.
and they would line it with stone
Uh-huh.
so that the soil didn't cave it in, and it would just drain. That's it.
So how long ago, when were these plans from?
This is 20. No, this is 09.
Oh. So it's possible,
I'm sure nothing has changed.
N-
from
nothing,
that.
no.
so cesspools
Well,
don't,
honestly, it has changed, but this plan is, Bill said this is the best drawing This has since been turned to trenches, but it's in the same place, so it's gonna have the same
distance.
requirements, so he said this is a good working plan. Everything else, we went through all the abutting properties within all of them, pulled all of their plans, and they're too far away. All of their structures are beyond the scope, so this is what we're working with when we wanna try to determine a park. So there's that. Now, could we get, is there a way to apply for some sort of waiver for that, or whatnot? I don't know. Like, it seems to me there should be, even if at the state level, where I would think we would have good luck, honestly.
Oh, but for affordable housing with a historic restriction, it
Right.
feels like.
It feels good
there's
to
a-
me.
there-
It feels good. And
Yeah.
so I feel like there's more to be looked at with that, but that is the first blush on it for that. Bill also said that some engineers we do need an engineer to perk, a soil evaluator, and an engineer to find the feasibility of that. Bill said to reach out and see if any of them might work at a reduced rate for a municipality or so on and so forth. I thought I would call Ross. I've worked with them. They have worked a lot in the town. They're very good with the soils, so that is on my to-do list. And then get an idea of what they might perk this for us. The machine, probably around $500.
The machine that actually does the.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that's like a few hours time, it doesn't take forever, you know. And that's, probably somebody local, which makes sense, cause you don't wanna pull a machine that increase the cost, but, you know, the engineer's the pricey one. So we'll see on that, but I still think somewhere around $3,000.
And I think, I haven't seen the agenda yet, cause it's not done yet, but, I think asking permission to do this should be on Monday's agenda for the select board, so we should have permission to do that.
Nice.
Shortly, hopefully. I
The
don't think
best
they're
times to
meeting.
park are like dry times, so.
Not this instant.
Not right now.
August,
Okay.
Okay, so we have,
usually
So
July,
if we-
August.
Okay.
Yeah, if we approve the expenditure in
So-
July. Well, yeah.
Yeah. So the argument of, you know, this would make a good spot because it's residential and all the perk rate flow for that kinda went out the window with the prior use, you know, we're trying to design. But I think seems to me there's gotta be a way around that. It's just that the way it is, that's what they're talking about. But I will get more information on that. And I do almost know that you can appeal to the state for some things. So I think that's the direction there.
Yeah, cause then I find that, like I said, I find that weird just cause it is right now, it has reverted to its original, I think, which is
Per the assessor,
for the building commissioner. It's not,
yeah. I'll ask Bill again. I'll just ask until he says yes.
Yeah.
you got something or?
Well, just don't know how helpful it is, but because the property is being transferred, there may be wiggle room in that. The fact it will be, it's not just the town maintaining ownership, right? The trust will take ownership of it, and I can go, obviously we can both read and see if, I mean, you know the right words to search and those sorts of things, but that, there may be wiggle room there. And, I mean, according to this, upon the transfer, like, as part of the transfer, we have to have the inspection done of the system, so this work should count for that.
Definitely.
Yes, and so could get us I mean, we assume it's a fail, but potentially.
It's absolutely a
remediation.
fail
Yeah.
right now. Some
Once-
schools do not pass.
Yeah, once it's transferred to us and under a fail, it looks like we have 2 years to remediate, does that seem correct?
Well, that's not how it would work though, cause they wouldn't be using the cesspool. When
Right, but it would fail, I mean, without a cesspool it fails, or with
Yeah.
us,
I mean,
it's-
there's flexibility in
Yeah,
that
okay,
anyway.
so in any case, yeah, so,
But
yeah,
the-
but yay, thank you for doing your research, and I'm looking forward to what else you find.
Yeah, no, it's
we
exciting.
just need to know if you can put in a
Something.
recipe system or something.
Are you not allowed, I guess you're not allowed to,
Well, if it won't
Dig
perk,
up.
you still,
Yeah.
it still has to perk to do a recipe system.
Yeah. Any kind of anything.
Yeah.
That you have to
So
have.
that's what we're trying to determine, is there potential to do this, or are we, there not, and if there's not, then we might as well just, yeah.
Then what does the town do? with it?
Right, I was just
I don't
gonna
know.
say.
yeah, select board.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that
It's
it's
gonna
gonna
work.
perk.
I think,
That would be a very
I mean, there
sad
are
end to the
ways.
saga if it
There's,
did not.
there's
Right.
variances, there's state appeals, I mean, there's a lot of things, but it's just extra stuff, and so.
It's time and money.
Yeah, sometimes you just, it's the right thing on the right
Sometimes it's
day and it
just
works.
persistence, yeah, it's, yeah.
Seriously.
With government stuff, it's just finding the right person and.
Who can hang their hat on it, yep. I mean, there's more steps, I do think there's conservation right behind here, we'll have to go through, get their sign off on it. And they may have an order of conditions and whatever, but that's all part of the process, and that's, led by the engineer, he'll tell you, they'll have to they may have to flag it, which is a whole nother expense, but. Anyway.
Which we would all, I mean, that would be part of our, if this ends up being us, that would be part of what we would just do, is.
Yep.
So one step at a time, we'll get there, hopefully. Alright. Is there anything else on Legion Hall right now?
Are we still trying to get on the fall meeting?
That is the current plan,
Okay.
I think. Which means like probably at the next one, we should start thinking about strategizing,
The
talking-
education
talking-
campaign.
Talking
and
to all of the various, and, yeah, and doing, whether it's something down at 19 Carter or something here, or whatever, just to start talking about it and getting the word out.
To hire these people for this, do we need any permission?
Well, we don't own the property, so we just need the permission that I'm trying to get us on Monday.
And that's it.
And then we could probably vote to let you sort of proceed with that based on the select board giving their permission on Monday to go ahead.
That's
and work
probably,
it.
yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully we get some better
So-
news, but.
All in favor of allowing Kate to pursue potential hiring or what she's doing on the parking end based on conditional improvement or approval by the select board of actually doing the work on Monday?
Aye.
Okay, so
All right.
charge.
Okay.
Alright. And then this is Jennifer Pike.
Hi.
She's hoping to be our new member. I guess I left it to the end just to make sure that, after you saw what we do, that you
I'm out.
still wanted to be involved in this, so,
I do. I'm kind of, I own a 40B, so that makes me kind of passionate about getting people affordable housing and making it available in town because so many towns like to fight affordable housing. And so that's kind of why I want to be part of the solution and not the problem.
do you have any questions?
Oh, a ton, but I
outside of-
think this
okay.
is gonna be a little bit of absorption and a little bit of, Beth, what were all those words that they said to me?
I can point you to really nice minutes.
And have you been, I know you did the trustee of trust funds, have you been involved in something with like dealing with open meeting law, dealing with all that, or not yet?
Well, yes, basically, I deal with trustees, because I'm a librarian, so I deal with
Okay.
library trustees all the time.
Good, good.
So I do understand, open meeting and, a vague notion of Robert's rules and stuff like that.
Okay.
So,
Cool. So next steps for that are, the select board has to approve you. You
Okay.
have to take, if you haven't taken ethics in the last 2 years, you need to take
I
the ethics thing. You need to
passed that
sign
on too.
conflict of interest, yada, yada.
Okay, I
So-
can, I forwarded, cause I took it earlier this year, the ethics,
Okay,
and I forwarded on because I was still a trustee of trust.
perfect.
And I know will be until next year, from what I understand.
Let us know if the meeting schedule becomes too much.
Alright, so.
Or at all.
I will let Dee
Okay,
know,
okay.
that you're here, they're interested. The select board will probably, that may even get on the agenda on Monday, I
Okay.
will let you know after you are approved, you don't have to come to the select board or
Okay.
anything like that. They go on the committee's recommendation, so, I will let you know when that's done, and then your official, as soon as the conflict of interest and those other things are
So signed, so let me know and I'll come in and I'll sign things.
And our next meeting is not until the fourth,
Of August.
the fourth week of
Fourth week of
July, the fourth Wednesday of July.
Which will be the 24th, it looks like.
Everybody's good for that?
Should
No,
be
no more.
the 22nd.
Yes.
No,
No, sorry, the 23rd, it's normally Wednesday, so
normally
we're all
Wednesday,
off
that's
because
right.
today's a
We're all-
Tuesday.
So you got
Okay.
the one meeting that we have changed in the entire time of changing, this is the only thing
Yeah.
we've ever had
Yes,
on Tuesday.
no, Wednesday the 23rd.
23.
And it's at 6.
It's at 6.
And that's always gonna be a little tight for me because I get out of work in Carlisle, so I'm just letting you know, do my best to be here.
Yeah, and we can do we could do 6:15 or something like that if that is helpful, probably. Or just
Don't
not do
wanna
anything.
change anything, but,
Okay.
you know. I'll be-
Let's see how it goes,
Okay.
if you are consistently feeling like you're missing something or whatever, cause the first part is normally not too relevant anyways, but if you're feeling like you're missing things.
Just really my update.
Kate
drones on forever.
We hang
She
out
doesn't
for-
even start taking notes.
Hang on. You need
The
to
first
have,
25 minutes.
if you don't have my phone number, you should have that,
I have your email now, so.
okay, but you can text me like Beth does when she's gonna be late.
Okay. Or I'll just text Beth and
Oh, no, no, you should- it should go to chair.
Absolutely.
Alright,
And we're gonna stay status quo with chair.
yeah,
Yes.
for now, nobody else is able to do chair for now. We will revisit this at a later date, and see if that changes, but for now, I will continue doing that. Beth will continue as CPA. Just so I just wanna make it clear that
Yes.
I don't love having all the leadership concentrated. I prefer that somebody else did it at some point, but I want things to run smoothly and I want everybody to be happy, so here we are.
Do the meetings typically last an hour?
Or less. Lisa's
Yes.
really good. That is another reason to keep her as chair, because she,
Fix it. Doing the right things. Alright, is there anything else anybody has?
Well, that other thing though.
Right, do you have a
Like-
response to the letter?
Legal thumbs up.
Okay.
we can't, it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, like how does that get?
We would have to go back into
Okay.
executive session. In progress. I
Right.
can put an executive session on the next one to discuss that.
Okay.
Okay. So if there is nothing else, all in favor of adjourning?
Hi.
Aye.